Welcome to episode 26 of FTCE Seminar, a teacher certification podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto. In today's episode, I'll be talking about the FTCE General Knowledge Reading Subtest. This is part 5 of a multi-series review of what you need to know to pass the reading section of the GK. Today, we're going to talk about figurative language and literal language. This has to do with the craft and structure of the text that you're evaluating. Oh gosh, that kind of sounds like a lot. Hey, no worries, you got this. Now, let's get started. Concept 1, figurative language. Figurative language and literal language are two types of literary devices that authors use to convey purpose, meaning, and their tone through their writing. According to Grammarly.com, figurative language is easily understood by, well, what it's not, and by its opposite, which is literal language. Okay, let's break this down. Literal language is meaning exactly what you say, like the tree is tall or the car is red. Okay, that sounds kind of boring, right? Exactly. Now we can define figurative language, which uses exaggeration and creativity to emotionalize words so readers can feel the tone of what the author's saying. Let's revisit the examples. In literal language, we say the tree is tall, but in figurative language, we say the tree stretched towards the sky, longing to be among the stars. Or like in the next example, the car is red. We could exaggerate that literal phrase with something like the revving engines of the Ferrari were heard before it blazed by like a burst of fire. Okay. I kind of exaggerated a lot on that last one, but this is what we mean by figurative and literal language. The type of language that's used throughout the text you're evaluating helps you establish what you're reading. For example, literal language will be used in informative texts like legal documents, academic papers, and things that will be supported by facts, numbers, maybe some statistics, and dates in chronological order. Conversely, a persuasive text may use some of these literal examples as well, but you'll also see more descriptive words, emotional words, and maybe even some opinions supported by figurative language. In fact, Grammarly.com says there's 5 types of figurative language. Well, there's more than that, but there's 5 common types. And those are similes, metaphors, personification, hyperbole, and allusion. Let's go through some definitions and examples of these literary devices. Number 1, similes. A simile is defined as something, let's put it this way. A simile compares two things using the word like or as. Example, the tree was tall like a skyscraper, or the car was as fast as a rocket. Okay, that makes sense. Number 2, metaphors. Definition, a metaphor compares two things, just like a simile, but when you're using a metaphor, you don't use the word like or as in the comparison. Example, the tree was a giant in the forest, resting its branches on the moon. Oh, wow, that's a really tall tree. Yeah. Okay, it works. See what I mean? Number 3, personification. Definition, oh man, personification is so cool. You know, Disney uses this literary device in a lot of their animated films. Personification is when you give human characteristics to abstract things. Example, the sad race car wiped away its tears and fumbled forward on its flat tire, heartbroken that it didn't win. Oh, poor sad race car. Wait a minute. Race cars don't have feelings, but with personification they do. Number 4, hyperbole. Definition, hyperboles are so much fun because they are extreme exaggerations and they're often used in literature. Example, going back to the previous example, the tree was a giant in the forest resting its branches on the moon. Okay, we get that that's a really big tree. In fact, it's so big that it's bigger than other trees. But do you really believe that it rested its branches on the moon? No way, Jose. but the extreme exaggeration helps us visualize a big, beautiful tree. Number 5, allusion. Definition: an allusion is a reference to a person, place, or event that is typically considered to be common knowledge. Example: an allusion requires a bit more finesse and wit. So let's see here. How about, I think I've found my Romeo? Now that's a reference to Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, or maybe something like this. This is a David and Goliath situation. And now that's referring to an underdog against great odds. Okay, I think we got it. Let's review. Remember that figurative and literal language are two types of literary devices that authors use to convey purpose, meaning, and tone to their writing. Literal language is to the point, fact-based, and usually in informative texts, legal documents, and academic writing. However, figurative language is descriptive, emotional, and oftentimes funny. Grammarly.com gave us 5 common types of figurative language, and they are similes that use like or as to compare two things, metaphors that compare two things but don't use like or as, personification, which gives human characteristics to inanimate objects, hyperboles, which are so fun because they're extreme exaggerations like, I have a million gazillion things to do, and number 5, allusion, which makes a reference to, a person, place, or event that's common knowledge. Being able to identify literal and figurative language within text helps you to interpret the text for the reading portion of the general knowledge test. In fact, being able to use all these reading skills will help you improve with every portion of the exam because reading's involved. How cool is that? For more practice with reading strategies, visit ftceseminar.com to study for the test. The important thing is to start studying today so you can pass the teacher certification exam. Well, what are you waiting for? Check us out on YouTube at FTCE Seminar and start studying today. This podcast was recorded at Pickens Multimedia Studio at the University of West Florida. This is your host, Mercedes Musto. Join me again on FTCE Seminar, a teacher certification podcast, so you can pass the FTCE.